the zone. Here I go, I'm on my way. I see more clearly and I feel strong.
Okay, this is my deck profile for a Donon Windwitch with a sub-engine of Magician Guilds. It's worked quite well for me. I've played it against Zoos, Metaphors, Crystal, Speedroids, other Invoke engines, and it seems to be exceptionally consistent. So let's get into the actual deck profile itself. So first up, we run 3 Alistair, the Invoker. This is probably one of the main cards in the deck, obviously. So during your player's turn, you can send this from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 fusion monster you control. It gains 1000 attack and defense until the end of the turn, so it's quite good at boosting up some of your fusions. Its main skill though is you normal summon it or flip summon it, and that's quite important if you've got a bit of a slow hand. And you can add 1 invocation from your deck to your hand. So this and invocation, which I'll come on to in a bit, are very key to getting off your combos for this deck. Okay, so next up is Ice Spell. This is another key card to the deck. It allows you to go into your crystal plays. For those of you who don't know what she does, you can special summon her from hand if you control no monsters. She then can search out another Windwitch. On top of that, she special summons it plus burns for 500. So if you're going turn 1, chances are you're going to end up with an exceptionally strong crystal wing out, plus you're going to burn as well for it. So moving on to the next part of that particular chain of combo. So next up is Glass Spell. Now she can, when she's special summoned, you can basically search out another Windwitch from your deck and put it to your hand. So plus she's a level 4 tuner, so she allows you to go up to your level 7 synchro. So quite important there. With her you're going to summon out the next card I'm going to come on to, which is Snowbell. Now Snowbell we only play the one of. Now some people play 3-3-2. Personally I just find that 3-2-1 is enough for me, because I do need some other elements of some of the other invoked monsters, but it's all about personal playstyle. But for me this particular build works exceptionally fast. So going on to the next part of the monster lineup, we play 1 Chocolate Magician Guild. Now she's very good in this particular deck because we run a bit of support in spells, and they work quite well with the spellcasters that the Magician Guilds do, plus all the different elements they have. Now on top of that, if you are struggling, you can dump 1 spellcaster and draw basically another card, which basically allows you to get into some extra plays. On top of that, we play 1 Kiwi, 1 Apple, 1 Lemon, and last but not least, we play 1 Berry. Now Berry's quite handy because when she's summoned, she allows you to put another Magician Guild into your hand, and if she's targeted by effect or attack, you can special summon another Magician Guild from your deck. So it gives you a bit of stalling tactics. Now the engine for this isn't too high, but it's the elemental lineup that's really important. So with the 5 of them, it gives you great synergy. You can use their skills to kind of work with each other, but more importantly it doesn't overtake the main engine, which is Alistair and the Invoke and the Windwitches. But it does give you the elemental fodder that you need to go into the invoked beasts. You don't want too many because I find it can get quite cloggy. You're either playing one engine or the other. The benefit of doing just a small amount of the Magician Guilds is you do get to play the deck faster. You get into more stronger boards from your extra deck, but they do work exceptionally well for basically getting into them, using the spellcasters to say chain Wonder Wand, which is in this deck as well, plus dumping for Chocolate's effect just to get extra cards. So it does work exceptionally well if you play it the right amount for yourself. Now the last monster card we play is Maxi. Don't really need to explain this. This basically drop 1 and you just keep going, especially on today's format where a lot of the decks seem to just spam for days. So this allows you to get a lot more cards into your hand, which then gives you a lot more options as well. So that was the monster lineup, which is 16 in total, which is just enough of this because it's the spells that do most of the work. So we played 2 Invocations, which is probably one of the best cards in the deck and probably one of the more expensive ones. But basically the way this works is Alistair searches it out. You then can use this to fusion summon an invoked beast either from materials on the field, hand, graveyard, or your opponent's graveyard if it's an invoked beast, but you can also use it to infuse fusion other monsters as well if need to. Now the other benefit of this is, say if you summon Alistair, get the effect off to search this, you can then banish Alistair to summon one of your invoked beasts. When this then hits a grave, you can then shuffle it into your deck and then return the Alistair back to your hand, which allows you then to either use it as a hand trap or go again next turn depending on what you need. So very, very important. Run 2. I don't think you need 3 unless you're maybe using it as a side deck option because you know you're going to kind of get targeted for it, but 2 is enough. 1 not enough. I did try it because obviously it was recycling so much, but then if you lost it, your whole deck was shut down. So the 2 is kind of the perfect number. I find that keeps the engine going. The only thing I would say is if you find yourself getting hit quite a lot for, I don't know, banish spells that just negate the effect and it's just trapped in your graveyard, if they're sided against you, you might need a 3rd, but I doubt it. It just depends on who you're playing regularly. Next up is Magical Meltdown. Now the benefit of this one is basically this gets your engine off a lot quicker. So you set this. Once it's activated, you get to literally just put an invoked Alistair straight from your deck to your hand. They can't activate spells in retaliation to you fusion summoning for an invoked beast. So summoning, strikes, monster effects can't activate. You have dominance or first preference, whichever way you like to put it. So this is really handy to make sure you're getting a strong board out, but also getting it to you as quick as possible. So we play 3 copies of. Next up we play 2 Terraforming. Now I know a lot of invoked decks play 3. I will be honest, the more I played this myself against different types of deck, I found it quite cloggy with 3 Terraforming. 2 is quite enough for me because I could use it as fodder if I was using a Twin Twist, but more importantly going into the Magical Meltdown. But at the same time, joining into 2 or 3 gave me kind of a cloggy hand. And I felt just getting rid of 1 really kind of gave me more consistency. So we played 2 of this. Okay, so next up is 3 Wonder Wand. Now this has really, really good synergy with the deck because we play the spellcasters in the Windwitches, the Magician Guilds and Alistair himself. Basically you summon Alistair, summon Chocolate Magician, get the effects off, attach this, then tribute, get another 2 cards. So this is a great way of loading up your graveyard for basically your fusion material, because with Invocation you could do that. More importantly though, it's also topping up your hand, so you can then look at what plays you can do before activating other traps. It kind of sometimes puts like Twin Twisters, warnings into your hand so you can line up the board so it's in a stronger position for yourself. It just gives you more options and works exceptionally well considering every monster in this is pretty much a spellcaster bar Maxi. Okay, so just a couple of staples now before I go into a bit of tech I use personally in Invoker. But the first one is Twin Twist, very important card. It gets rid of 2 spells, 2 traps, whatever's in the back row. It's great getting it over. Plus, if you find yourself with a Terraforming and a Meltdown or 2 Terraformings, you can use 1 because it's pretty much a dead card that turn, so it's very easy to pay the cost. Plus, you find yourself wanting to dump stuff into the graveyard because it doesn't slow you down in this deck at all. So paying the cost is no cost for you really at all. So next up is 1 Raigeki. Enough said really. Raigeki clears boards, helps you win games. So obviously we're going to play 1. Also one of the main staples, Upstart Goblin. Yes, it has got a high cost, but basically allows you to go really quickly into your combos. And if you haven't quite got all the cards you want, being able to draw again is always worth its weight. So next up we play 3 Instant Fuse. This is quite handy for basically speeding up the deck quite consistently. The reason being is we run quite a lot of targets for this. We run 3 Regimes, which I'll come on to in a minute, 1 Norden, which then basically allows you to go up a lot quicker. The thing that works really well with this deck is one of the spells that's kind of overlooked in Invoker, which is Book of Law. The reason being is if you use Instant Fuse to go into Raging, if you've got this in your hand, you can then maybe use Raging's effect, then go into one of the more powerful ones like Yugioh, Magpie, and get off their effects as well. If you're attacking multiple times in a game, you can then switch out one of your invoked beasts and get an additional attack off. My personal favourite combos, you basically use Raging this on their turn, go then into Equilibrium, and then basically banish it. Then you usually have, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 banish monsters at that particular junction to then play the next card I find exceptionally useful in this deck, which is Omega Summoning. Now this then allows you to bring back, say, Equilibrium if you use him. The reason being is you can then use his effect to, say, banish himself and banish then all of your opponent's monsters in the element of your choice. This then allows it to come back and basically give you defense or use his effect again. I find this exceptionally useful, and if you've used, I don't know, Invocation to get Equilibrium out, you might have 2 or 3 banish monsters, in which case you can then use this to return 1 invoked beast in different elements. So sometimes you find yourself getting back 2 or 3 monsters from your banish zone, and your opponent rarely sees it coming, to be fair, because this is one of those cards that came out in the set that everyone thought was a bit jank, no one thought it was useful, but if it's played correctly with the fuse, Instant Fuse and the Book of Law, you find yourself using it a lot more regularly. Okay, so for the rest of the traps, we play 2 Quaking Mirror Forces because it's quite consistent. And you want to attack you, turn them face down, locks up the board, so if they're playing Pendulum, they can't Pendulum again, or if they want to basically try and build up a better board again, it locks up those spaces, forcing them either to tribute or they have to get rid of the resource first, which is a lot more difficult when they're locked face down. We then play 2 Solemn Strikes. The ability to pay 1500 just to stop an effect or a summoning is very useful in my opinion, especially a lot of the cards out at the moment either use an effect to summon a monster, use an effect to get over one, or use Pendulum for example, just spam the board. The ability to strike that is just worth its weight in gold in my opinion. We only play the 2 because with the extra deck lineup we got, we find ourselves only needing it because you end up with 2 or 3 ways of just stopping them summoning or stopping effects and clearing boards. The last trap though is the Warning, because obviously it's Warning. I find this a bit stronger because sometimes Strike doesn't work on that particular type of summoning, whereas this just says no to whatever they're trying to get out, so it doesn't cause you any problems whatsoever. So going into the extra deck, probably one of the main extra deck monsters we use is Raging. Basically Book of Moon your opponent or even yourself, so if you Instant Fuse this, you can't attack, but it might be that you need the ball present, so you can basically Book of Moon himself into defense. And if you've got the Book of Law out because you know it's an invoked monster on their turn, or even your own, if you haven't used a Windwitch, you can then basically go into Equilibrium, which will come into a minute, which is a more stronger defense. And his ability to like let them play out. If they're, I don't know, Zeus, all Earth, you can then declare Earth and banish the board. Or if it's like Metaphase, Fire, declare Fire, banish the board again. So very good synergy, and because there's so many wind targets in this, we run this at the full 3. Okay, next one up is Magpie. This guy is absolutely brilliant. I run 2 of this. Now a lot of you are probably wondering why I run 2 when I only run 1 light monster in my deck. To be honest, it's not a problem because you pay for cost to drop into the grave. Yeah, that's one. You can then use a second invocation to banish from the grave. It sounds weird, a lot of people are playing Ghost Ogre and some form of light monster in their own deck these days that I can use their graveyard by thereby getting rid of some of their resources or the ability to put back. So getting 2 of these out is actually very, very easy. His effect is brilliant, basically dump either spell, trap or monster to then banish and negate the activation of the same on your opponent's field. You can only activate it once, so having 2 of these is quite good because a lot of people see this as quite a threat, and it's the real other reason you probably run 2 is because it is one of those ones everyone targets straight away as soon as they see it coming. Next up is, I'm going to probably kill most of his names, but Megacelia. Basically, he's just the beat stick of the deck. If you get in trouble, you can call him out in defense. 3,300 defense is not exactly hard, well, not exactly easy to get over. Plus 3,000 attacks, it's just quite good to beat over stuff. Plus, if you've got the Maxi in the grave, you can use that to get into this guy. If you're playing zoos, you can maybe get rid of one of their rats to get into this guy, so it banishes one of their resources that ideally they want back in their deck, which is quite handy as well. Now, this guy, probably a lot of people think, why have him? He's absolutely useless. But I tell you what, if you play against some people that have multiple card effects, this guy is really good at slowing them up. Now, Kolga, or however you pronounce this guy, his main effect is when it's summoned, you can only activate one effect per turn each, so it does hit you a little bit as well, but it slows up those boards that rely on combos, plus they can only attack once. So if you are struggling to get a good hand, this guy's quite good at getting out just to slow things back down, let you take a minute and just rework your board, maybe lay a couple of traps as well so he stays on a bit longer while you're just fixing it. Personally, he's got me out of quite a few jams because calling out something that just slows your opponent down is absolutely brilliant. Plus the number of dart monsters in most decks these days, as well as having it in your own with Invoked Alistair, is really quite key to have. Now, next up is probably one of my personal favourites as well. This is Invoked Percatrio. This guy is absolutely brilliant. You call this guy out and people are going to wonder what the hell's happened, because basically his effect is you gain 200 attack for every card your opponent controls. That's pendulum, back row, monsters, whatever. But also it has piercing, so if they're playing defensively, this gets through them and does multiple damage. But the other really good effect is it gets to attack every monster they control once. So if they're floating or they've got a really big board, this all of a sudden goes into a massive beat stick that just gets to get over them one by one by one by one. And for certain decks that play fire, this is really good against, because you can banish something out of their graveyard and then just beat over them brilliantly. So last up is probably a card I'm actually considering bumping up to 2, because I can get 2 of these out no problem in this deck. But it's just finding the room for it, because it means I'm going to have to lose one of my extra deck cards. But this guy absolutely shuts down your opponent's board with no problem whatsoever. It's 3200 beat stick with 4k backside, so it's exceptionally hard to get through, including against blue eyes decks that play 4k beaters as well. But at the same time, his effect is brilliant. So if they're setting up a board, chances are it's going to be predominantly one element. So you then declare an element and this card becomes it. Then you can banish this, or if you have an invoked beast of the same element in your graveyard, that, and you get to banish every card of that element on your opponent's field. So if you play this then with Omega Summoning, you can banish it and then call it back, which is absolutely amazing. So next up in the extra deck is Norden, quite a staple for any deck that runs a couple of level 4s. You can call up, say, maybe Invoker Alistair from your graveyard, or a Windwitch, or even Chocolate Girl, going to a rank 4, and then basically use that rank 4 to, I don't know, depending on which one it is, get over your opponent. The one we mostly use is Emerald, so we can use them to get into this, pay the cost to get Alistair back into the graveyard, which then helps you boost up your graveyard to go into the invocation if you've got it, or if you then get the extra draw, it helps you get a chance getting back into it, which then gives you more plays. I then play the one Castell because it's exceptionally useful, so if you have got a problem that you can't maybe kill, or it's floating, this just returns it, so it's quite good at just getting over problem areas, and getting into 4s isn't exactly hard if you're playing Norden, so using this just to get over that problem is kind of key. So last off is Synchros. So Synchros, we played the one Clearwing. For those of you who don't know him, probably one of the best cards of last year. When he attacks, if it's a 5 or higher, basically you gain their attack power in damage calculation, so you're always attacking for 3k if you're attacking something in the attack position that's level 5 or higher. Can negate monster effects, which is even better. So once this is on board, especially with the Windwitches, it's pretty much exceptionally hard to deal with. Next up is one of the Winter Bells. Now, we play this mostly as a stepping stone to get to that Crystal Wing you've just seen. So, one, it burns for 800 when it's special summoning, you have Windwitch in the grave. So you can basically use it as a stepping stone, do a little burn damage, but then the most important thing is getting into that Clear Wing. So, Crystal Wing, not Clear Wing. This is Clear Wing. I run one of these. This is probably the last extra deck monster I do run. Reason being is because I don't run the full 3-3-2 or 3-3-3, depending on how you want to word it, the Windwitches. Sometimes I find myself wanting to go into a single 7 that isn't a Windwitch Bell, and this is probably the next best thing to do that, because obviously it has similar effects, not as powerful as clearing, but exceptionally problematic to deal with. So this has been my version of Invoker. Hope you've enjoyed it. Now, it's not going to be for everybody, I'm not going to lie. Sorry if I've murdered a couple of the names, but like any card game, some of the names are just impossible to pronounce to some people. But hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you do, like or subscribe. Next video for this will be a combo one, so please stay watch for that. Plus I probably should do an extra deck, so I'm working on a couple of key techs for extra deck at the moment, so please stay tuned.